What's up, guys? Welcome to the show. Welcome to yet another Wednesday afternoon and another episode of Action Movie Anatomy on the Popcorn Talk Network. Today, we are going to be breaking down 2007's epic sniper film, Shooter, starring Mark Wahlberg, directed by our favorite director in the world, Antoine Fuqua. This is going to be amazing and incredibly patriotic. We'll see you guys in just 1 second.
Welcome to Popcorn Talk, featuring movie discussion, news, and interviews. Popcorn Talk. We talk movies. And now, here's Popcorn Talk's Action Movie Anatomy.
Boom! What's up, everybody? Welcome to the show. Oh, man, we're going through the tall grass. This is intense.
I feel like when I used to play Sniper Wars in StarCraft back in the day.
You got a Charlie on your shoulder.
A Charlie? Is that what they're called?
You played StarCraft?
Dude, I played StarCraft like avidly.
I know, but when we were talking about StarCraft last week, you didn't bring up how committed to StarCraft you were.
It's been a long time.
I mean, it was
And
wild.
the starting tight end of the University of Texas El Paso.
It's been a long time, General.
It's because it's still one of the greatest ever made games. It's still so competitive.
People love StarCraft, though. I think the competitive scene is definitely dying off a little now. Finally,
are they still playing StarCraft 1 in tournaments?
No, StarCraft
it's
2.
2 now? Okay, I just wasn't sure.
So anyway, guys, that's a little nice segue we've given you here. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Action Movie Anatomy.
Why are we here?
Show where we talk about action movies and break them down for the Popcorn Talk Network, the online broadcast network dedicated to talking movies and all things movie-related. I'm your host, Ben Bateman. You can find me at Ben Bateman Media, Twitter and Instagram. Joined today by Mr. Andrew Ghai.
Hey, everybody. Oh, you're clapping me in. You got to clap in today.
Andrew's got the clap.
I got the. That is not true. I'm Andrew Ghai. You guys can find me at Andrew Ghai on Twitter and Instagram, and here every Wednesday talking about this stuff. And Antoine Fuqua is on our show once again.
Once again, I was thinking about this for somebody I claim to dislike his style of direction.
We love him.
Well, I was just thinking about how many directors, have I seen and discussed their work so extensively. Like, I think if I had the opportunity to interview Fuqua, I would jump at it.
Oh, of course you would.
So excitedly.
You know more about his films and his work than almost anyone else I know.
Yeah. So I think it's fairly hilarious. And maybe by the end of this, like, we will just
ironic.
Learn to love Fuqua. Like, I think we're kind of on the path already.
I think I do, and I think it's because people don't hold him in such high regards anymore.
Southpaw was a big misstep, I think.
I think it was a big misstep. It might have been like a reality check for everyone, including himself.
Yeah.
So he did Magnificent Seven, which was exactly what you wanted out of it.
Mag 7 was sweet.
Yeah.
It was good. Guys, welcome to the show. We break down action movies on the show. Those action movies adhere to 4 basic rules. Number 1, the hero always plays by their own rules. Bob Lee Swagger is that kind of hero, no question.
His name says it all.
Yeah, Swagger. Bob Lee Swagger.
I
can't really do a good. I'm not really.
Oh, is that Glover?
I was trying. Bob Lee Swagger. I can't really.
You're like an old.
He sounds
Southern...
really old when he does it.
He does. No, that's not it.
He does sound really old.
I gotta think of something he says.
That's Morgan Freeman trying to use the restroom.
You know what this is? I can't do it.
Yeah, this is bad.
We're done. This is really bad.
Rule number 2, the hero and the villain are always the smartest people in the room. It's weird because I don't think they make Danny Glover out to be very smart.
You know what? Part of my thesi, because I have 2, that's part of it, is they don't make him that smart, and they also kind of muddle him.
Yeah.
By bringing in other villains. So...
And by editing the audio in such a way that you can't understand most of what he says.
You can't understand what most of anyone says in this film.
Very poorly edited audio. Yeah. I mean, they just mumble to each other.
Other than when Kmart says, Swagger?
Yeah.
Bob Lee Swagger?
Swagger.
She sounds like Clarice Starling from Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah, it's a remarkably bad performance from an actress who's actually been very good in her career.
Yeah.
We were even talking about recently what she's been in. She's in The Martian. She's one of the...
Yeah.
She's great.
She is. She is. I know. I was totally off base when I said that yesterday, and it was because I was watching this, and I feel like this is what I've seen her do the most, unfortunately.
Yeah. Anyway, bizarre. But rule number 3: the movie is driven by a police, military, or political or mercenary figure. When we say political, it means they could either be the man or work for the man. In neither case is that the deal. He is military. He's ex-military.
He's military AF.
Yeah, he's military AF. He's what do they call them? Gunnery sergeants, right?
Yeah.
He's a gunnery sergeant. He's a sniper. He's highly decorated.
He can shoot a silver dollar from a mile away.
Yeah, 6 times, dead center, half an inch apart.
How does he miss by a foot?
How does he miss by a foot? That's like some Nick Cage Snake Eyes shit. It was a phantom punch.
Damn it, you beat me to it.
Rule number 4: the movie contains a minimum of 1 explosion. Yeah, this movie is our rules in spades.
It's perfect.
Yeah, this is like as dead on as it gets.
It's so funny, movies that we don't even discuss the rules, because a lot of movies going into deciding whether they're on the show or not, we always discuss our rules. We didn't even talk about it on the shooter, and it's perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's just exactly what you would expect it to be, guys.
Classic American action movie.
So we talk about action movies here, guys, and if you want to follow along in the conversation, I mentioned you can find me at Ben Bateman Media. Andrew, where can the folks find you?
They can find me at Andrew Ghai on Instagram and Twitter, and I also have the live chat going. It looks like Marissa's got it up as well, so we're all kind of chiming in today.
We're humming. Cool. If you guys want to follow along, please follow the podcast as well at AMA Podcast on Twitter. We got a couple really cool suggestions this week. We didn't put up AMA Question of the Week, but somebody tweeted one in anyway. Did you see that this morning?
I didn't.
Oh, it's fantastic. They were talking about epic matchups of characters from different mediums.
Okay, so I wasn't sure if that was a question. I thought it was just like a suggestion for a segment. I think that's awesome.
And the one they suggested was Nathan Algren versus Tavington, Last Samurai versus the Patriot, which I read that and my jaw dropped.
Oh, me too.
Jaw dropped. In fact, you talk for a second. I'm going to find out who that was.
Okay.
Because that deserves a shout out.
I don't know what to talk about. I feel stuck. Yeah, okay, so I think that would be a sweet segment. And also I think that's part of why I want to go into talking about our thesis. Actually, you know what? No. Let's cue up the trailer. That is usually the next thing we do, and you're going to look up a Twitter name.
It's, at Here Comes the _Fuzz. Killian Hegarty. Thank you, Killian Hegarty. Fantastic suggestions. The other one on here was the T-800 versus Agent Smith. Also awesome.
That would be a very good one.
But I really do think that Nathan Algren versus Tavington is like...
That's one of the sweetest... Could you imagine if Tavington was in The Last Samurai instead?
Just unbelievable. Yeah. Mind blown.
Just brilliant.
The two of them together,
beautiful cinema, my friend. That is beautiful cinema.
So that's anyway. That's amazing. Thank you guys so much. If you want to follow along and suggest things like that, get shout outs on the show, please find us at AMA Podcast and leave your thoughts and comments on the YouTube below. Oh, one thing I wanted to throw out there, really quickly, before we watch the trailer for Shooter, which I'm very excited for.
2007.
Guys, I believe this week are going to be hitting 8 million views on Action Movie Anatomy.
We are.
I think we're at 8 million this week.
Wow. 8 million people have watched
sometime between now and next show, we will be crossing the 8 million view mark. And 8 million!
8 million people. Let's give us a little golf clap for that.
Like, what the hell? How did that happen?
I don't know, man. It's so crazy. You and I created this show literally just because we like movies, and we had no idea where it was going to go or if it was even going to happen. And to think that 8 million people have sat down and watched and talked about movies with us that's awesome.
It's insanity.
Yeah.
It's total insanity. Every once in a while we get a reminder, somebody will text or not text, but tweet at us or leave a comment, stop us at like a convention or something, and let us know that they love what we do. And it's an unbelievable feeling. We are so thankful to every one of those 8 million views. We've loved the whole process the whole time, and we intend to get all the way to 10 to 20 million. So
yeah. My mom's probably like 1 million of them, but the other 7.
Yeah. And she leaves 1 million YouTube comments and Facebook comments.
Sure does. But wow, 8 million. That's incredible, guys. Thank you so much for that.
Big time stuff. Let's watch the trailer for Shooter. Shooter. Red Lobster?
It's a Happy Gilmore reference for those of you that didn't get it.
Come on, boy.
It's a good dog. I hate when they do this with dogs in the beginning because you know they're going to kill it later. And I don't like when people kill dogs.
Bubbly swagger.
Bubbly swagger.
Fine.
Hard enough.
There's going to be an attempt on the life of the president. The shot would be taken from beyond a mile.
Maybe Danny Glover's voice was always like that, because I was thinking about the Royal Tenenbaums. He sounds like this, and that's 7 years before this. Like, I don't remember him sounding like that in Lethal Weapon, so maybe it was somewhere in his 40s.
All the men alive on the planet.
It got much more rhythm as he got older.
5 to 6 people are making shit like that. And the director of Training Day.
Yes, because that's the only thing he ever did.
Take him now.
How does that guy miss?
Seriously.
I get why he was so upset.
Sergeant Bob Lee Swagger.
I didn't do whatever they said I did. I'm in some bad trouble. I need some help.
Swagger. Your bobbly swagger.
They delivered me on a tray wrapped up like a present.
Swagger is just
He lost 20 pounds for this role.
Yeah.
Got shredded, which makes sense because he looks shredded.
20 pounds is a lot of weight.
Schwarzenegger Predator shit.
Yeah. So lean. Pole hose.
Conspiracy, all loose ends are trained.
You need to back off this. Agent Memphis.
Michael Pena is the ultimate smart dumbass.
Yeah, he's great.
I love that guy. Observe and Report is amazing.
Love her.
This is a Delta level clearance request.
Really weird, dark movie. Yeah.
Intel. This guy's good.
There's gonna be more shooting. More people are gonna die. I didn't start it, but I mean to see it through. We got him.
How could you miss? He was this close to you.
set about for justice.
This is like a pretty standard 2007 like Enemy of the State style trailer cable movie.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I have
Trailer.
something you want.
This could just as easily, if you swapped out,
Coming from a long way.
honestly, if you just swapped out Wahlberg, you could see this movie on cable.
Yeah, totally. Well, you know that one of the original choices for this movie that it was offered to was what's his name, Goldman's William Goldman.
What?
The bad guy from Last Samurai, the guy from Ghost.
Oh, perfect.
Is it Samuel
Tony
Goldwyn?
Goldwyn.
Goldwyn.
Yeah.
Tony Goldwyn, I believe, is one of the original
He's
choices.
a great shitweasel.
Yeah, which is funny because like this, you can't put that guy in this movie. Like that's such a strange lead.
No.
The other ones that it was offered to were like Clint Eastwood and Harrison Ford, and people who were like way older.
Yeah, which like I guess fit the billing of the original of the book,
Yeah.
the novel, but I think it would have been misappropriate in the movie.
This yeah, like okay, so this is what we're gonna do here, guys. We are gonna get into something. We're gonna do a game here in a second, but we're gonna start what we always start with, which is thesis statement. And thesis statement is that part of the show. Something we focus on a big detail, something in the movie that like we really paid attention to the whole time. Should almost be rooted in like hyperbole, like the greatest this, the best this. The single example of this that is the most relevant I can think of ever. It should never be something soft. Like this is, you know.
Danny
my
Glover is a pretty great villain in this.
Yeah, or even something like, you know, Mark Wahlberg is a very believable sniper in this movie. Like, that's not good enough. It's got to be something that you can really hold on to. Something you'd want to kind of, like, you know, tout at a party if this movie came up.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna jump in first, if you don't mind.
If you're at a party and Shooter comes up, by the way, you should leave.
It's a weird party.
It's a weird party, man.
All right, this is what I'm going to say. Antoine Fuqua is the definitive trashy action movie director alive right now. This is his definitive film. Drop
This
the mic.
is his definitive film. You know what?
It's his definitive trashy action film. I think that Antoine Fuqua, this represents him more than any movie I can think of, and I'll explain why.
Oh, God. You know what? I totally disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
But I love your thesis statement, so go.
This is where I'm going to come from. So there's a lot of things in this movie that happen where you're just like, oh, so it's this kind of movie. Where you're like, this, you could have been so much more intelligent with this scene, or like you didn't even have to have this scene in the movie at all. This villain could be so much less like black and white cardboard, or you didn't have to have that useless exposition. Like there's all these things, like the chick that answers the door doesn't need to have her shirt open and not wearing a bra clearly and have like full makeup on. It could be like she could just be in a robe and like not really look very good because it's the morning. Like,
Right.
It's like so many things about this movie. Him slow-mo walking away with an American flag waving behind him. There's so many things about this movie that you're just like, this is just a trashy action movie. Like, you guys aren't even trying to make this intense. Like, it's overly violent. It's totally fucking sweet.
Yeah.
But, like, what it makes you realize is that there are the alternatives to this movie, which is, I think, the most distilled example. The closest one you can come up with is Olympus Has Fallen. It's
In his career?
yeah,
Gotcha.
it's close. Olympus Has Fallen is like a similar kind of thing where it's it's grotesquely violent. It's like totally hilarious and ridiculous. It has a bunch of scenes where you're just like, oh, Penny, I'm sorry, babe. Like,
thirsty as fuck.
yeah. And then I would say, you know, he gets a lot of credit for Training Day. But if you think about Training Day, there's a lot of scenes in Training Day where it's like, did Eva Mendes need to run naked in that scene? Like,
She did.
I mean, it's a good scene because she's super hot.
Ben, leave that scene alone.
But like, you don't need it. It doesn't
not at
do
all.
anything
Not at
for
all.
the movie. There's tons of scenes like that in his movies where you're just trying to do something that's like R-rated to do it.
Right.
You could make this movie better without those things, but that's the kind of director that he is, which is, I think, ultimately, like, didn't you feel that Magnificent Seven was overly violent?
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
super violent.
Absolutely. And so the reason that I love your thesis statement is because I completely agree that Antoine Fuqua is the trashy action movie director of this generation. But I disagree with your choice of film. I think Southpaw is the greatest example of that.
Okay.
And the reason I agree and believe that Southpaw is the greatest example of that is for all the points that you made. And that's why that movie wasn't great. There's something about boxing movies that we as a nation and as fans of movies, we love.
Yeah, it's the most believable sports take in movies, like, period.
Yeah,
Always is.
And there's something that just, like, you empathize with them. You feel for them. And Southpaw, they kill the wife. They show that in the trailer, for God's sakes. The villain is, like, for God's sakes, one of the most over-the-top, cliche, ridiculous, unbelievable villains. He, like, his posse, like, kills his wife, essentially. Like, in a weird, anyway. That movie was Oscar bait.
Yeah.
They talked about, and like Jake Gyllenhaal winning Best Actor, but when you watched it, it was just a trashy action film.
Yeah.
With like trashy, shitty boxing in it, a storyline that was ridiculous and completely unthought out and cliche.
Yep.
And Fuqua directed it. But the thing is, if you didn't present it like that, if you didn't present it as a film that should win an Oscar, I've been like, this is kind of just like a trashy boxing movie.
You'd be like, you should see Southpaw. It's kind
it
of
looks sweet. It's sweet.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So the ultimate, I think, we're on the same page now, which
And
is
it's not that I don't like Fuqua.
Yeah, I would say I used to think I didn't like Fuqua. This is almost episode 80, guys. Going on 8 million views pretty soon. Let me just point that out one more time. Going on 8 million views pretty soon. I can honestly say it's taken me 80 episodes to truly appreciate Antoine Fuqua.
Yeah.
In the beginning of the show...
It took me 2 episodes to appreciate Tom Cruise.
Yeah. In the beginning of the show, I didn't appreciate Tony Scott anywhere to the point that I do now.
I didn't even know. I was like, why do we keep talking about Ridley Scott's brother?
Right.
You know?
Eventually, you watch these movies, you study what's going on, and you start to realize that just in the same way that I will give Michael Bay credit for being Michael Bay, like he's good at what he does, exactly what he does, I will give Antoine Fuqua credit for being the same thing. His movies don't have to get hyped to be the summer's biggest blockbuster release like Michael Bay's do. Michael Bay, that was his thing for a long time, was if he put a movie out, it was a Michael Bay movie. He's a little more in the category of Fuqua now.
And he still gets the biggest actors in the world.
Yeah.
You know?
You know, like, The Equalizer to me is... It's the same kind of movie as this. It's just that you get to put Denzel in it, so it's just a little bit sweeter. Like, but it's the same kind of nonsense where, like, the bad guy is just completely, like, overly bad, and, like, most of the scenes are super, super trashy and cliche.
It's a one man against the world type thing.
Yeah, and it's so at the end of the day, it's totally awesome. He's totally awesome, and I think that if you're going to really focus on what makes Antoine Fuqua awesome, this is the movie that shows it. This is the best representation of him being him.
Yeah, because this movie is really sweet.
It doesn't really try to be more than it is. That's the thing. This movie, more than any of them, does not try to fool you.
No.
It just is what it is.
Yeah, and did they still brand it as from the director training day, but still. Okay, so my thesis statement, I have 2, and my joke one is that Elias Koteas and Christopher Maloney are the same person.
What does Christopher Maloney look like?
He's the guy from Law & Order SVU. And
Marissa, any chance we could have a picture of Christopher
Just
Maloney thrown?
literally just type in Elias Koteas in Google and go to images, and it only shows the comparison pictures. That's all I could think about watching this whole film, is that they were the same person.
Elias Koteas, most famously, I think, is in The Thin Red Line. I believe that's his most famous
He's been in a lot of great films. Okay, so look, that's just like, they're all just pictures of both of them. They're the same person. That's the same person.
Oh yeah, look at that. Except it's Koteas is on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could tell.
I'm on to you too. You won. Okay, so that's my joke thesis, because that's just the thing I can argue at a party, and
Okay.
I will.
Yeah.
I will
intend to.
fight.
I will bring up shooters so I can argue it, and people will
And
leave.
you're coming to that party. The other one is, and I've said this time and time again, and that's why I'm gonna like change just a little bit. You can't have a great action movie without a great villain. Okay, you can't do it. Now, is Danny Glover kind of sweet and a good villain? He kind of is. But they muddle it by bringing in the guy that's like, he's like Russian in every other film that he's in, but he's in a wheelchair in this one. I can never remember his name, but he's great. I do love him.
Mikhail Prokhorov,
Is
owner of the Brooklyn Nets.
yes, I believe that's his name. And then you got Koteas. It's a restaurant in San Diego, burrito place. And then you've got the this random senator at the end.
Oh,
so you've
sure.
got like 4 bad guys when you originally had just Glover.
Yeah.
And I think if you just stuck with Glover and you had a sweet, showdown with him because the showdown ends up being with the senator. Glover's just kind of picked off.
Yeah, it's true. There are a lot of villains. None of them really seem like they're that smart. They all seem kind of dumb and cardboard and black and white and just like.
So why not make Glover just a little more dominant, a little smarter?
Also, because he had the Congressional Medal of Honor, it's like you'd believe that he was a little more cunning and like of a badass. Yeah, it was definitely a strange choice, and I think this movie is a little overly long. It feels like it has two parts.
Yeah, it is long.
Distinctly, it has 2 parts. Like this movie could have, I think, very easily been an hour and 25 minutes.
Yeah,
yeah,
because 2 hours for this film that's the Fuqua part.
It's a little redundant.
Of taking it a little too serious. Or redundant is perfect.
So we'll talk a little bit more about like why it's long and the script and things like that in just a second. But let's move on to our next game, something that we are going to be calling the name game. This was suggested by one of our users a while back. I wish that we had that pulled up in front of me because I feel like giving you credit, but I don't have it in front of me. This is where we come up with a silly title that isn't the one used for the movie because Shooter is kind of forgettable.
Yeah.
So go ahead and pull it up because I'm going to actually tell you what the name of the film originally was in the book.
So my title is Stop. Swagger Time.
Swagger Time.
Got to do it.
That's great.
I just had to because you know what? The movie doesn't take itself that seriously, and that's a perfect title.
It's an excellent title.
And you know what? I'd see it. I would go watch Stop Swagger Time, and if it was just a preview of him just killing people.
The original name of this book, I wish I had written it down here. I have all the stuff written about the writers. I just don't have it written down. Marissa, can you ask one more quick favor?
If you go to Shooter Wikipedia, it should be like one of the first things.
Perfect. That would be amazing. So I decided to come up with like this is a pretty trashy movie, and like this feels like if this were made in the era of like Steven Seagal, it would be starring Steven Seagal. So I decided that In Deadly Company was my title.
I was gonna say In Deadly Sight is what I was gonna say.
or just Deadly Company. I think Deadly Company might be better.
But if it was the 90s, it would be In Deadly Company.
In Deadly Company. Because like he's like a sniper, so his company, they're deadly.
Steven Seagal is Bob Lee Swagger.
But then he's also working with people who can't be trusted, so they're also deadly. So that's his Deadly Company he's in. In Deadly Company.
Always working with people that can't be trusted.
In Deadly Company.
So the name of the novel was called Point of Impact.
Point of Impact.
By Stephen Hunter.
Yes, which is not a good enough title for this. Point of Impact.
Point of Impact is not good.
No. All right,
what
guys.
A stupid name of a stupid book.
Thank you, Marissa. Let's move on to the next part of this episode. This is going to be very controversial. I have my defense of this.
Oh God, man.
Let's get into fist pump moment, guys. Fist pump moment's that moment where something happens in the movie, and you look over at your buddy, and you're just like, fucking awesome. This is the best. You're like,
this is fucking sweet.
You're like, this movie's so awesome. I can't believe I get to watch the rest of this movie right now. It's kind of maybe that moment that you realize this is the kind of movie you're watching, or it's one of your favorites, and something happens, and you're just like, that's just the greatest. I'm so elated now.
I know what you're gonna say.
Yeah.
I know everything that you're gonna say to defend it too, and so I actually am kind of on board. I'm gonna hop on first.
Go ahead.
And I'm gonna go with. It's tough because this movie doesn't have enough gravity or weight to it a lot of the time to have like that moment of like, yes.
Yeah, right.
But it did come for me at the end when he finally shoots the senator.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but it's just a like very gory headshot.
Yeah.
That's like, you know that no matter what the dude says, he's gonna kill him, and it's after a great shot to Glover. Because even though I think that they should have focused on Glover's death more,
it
was still a sweet shot.
Yeah,
like,
through the like
chest, and he's like,
yeah,
he's like choking to death. But yeah, he just walks up with the sweet gun. He's like, I'm a senator. He's like, I know, and then boom, and it's just like his head like explodes.
Totally,
it's gnarly, and I was kind of like, yeah, that's exactly what needed to happen. If that's the way you wanted to go with this whole thing, that's what needed to happen.
Yeah, totally. This movie's way over the top, and it really does feel like one of those old school like 80s. Nothing is really sort of taken very seriously action movies.
I think your thesis should have been that this should have been a Seagal movie in the 80s.
Yeah,
because that was brilliant. That like blew my mind.
So here's my fist pump moment, guys, and I'm gonna explain it. Swagger shows up to Kate Mara's house, knocks on the door. Now, we all know that it's going to be Kate Mara already because of the foreshadowing in the scene when his buddy shows him the picture. And he's like, oh, that's your lady or whatever. And he's like, yeah. And then he dies. You're like, yeah, well, that's Kate Mara. Obviously, that's going to be the girl in this movie, even if you have never seen it. So he shows up. She opens the door. And, like, it's that moment where you're like, oh, it's this kind of movie. She's like clearly done up. she like her whatever, her robe is open. She's clearly not wearing a bra. It's like just sex object, and you're like, so that's what you guys are gonna do here, huh?
That's why she's in this film.
On top of which, because this movie is so completely over the top, and this movie is so completely unbelievable, they make Elias Koteas like a super rapey character.
Of course they do.
Which is like, again, it's like, let's just push every villain to the extreme, and let's make everybody super patriotic. Let's make the woman an object.
That's a cheap trick they use in movies a lot, is throwing rape in when they can't think of like a real good story behind this guy, or a real way to make him bad. They're just like, just do that because everyone hates that guy.
Of course, it's deplorable, and he is deplorable from the second that happens.
Yep.
So everything about this movie, for me, as far as like the how sort of like male and like masculine 80s action, is the moment that she opens the door when you're like, I almost know exactly how this is going.
You almost laugh. You chuckle.
Yeah, because then like she's like later she's like, I'm trained to be a nurse, and you're like, oh, and he's like perform surgery on me, and she's
Good
like,
luck.
she's like, I got it, and then she like does the surgery and it works.
5 bags of blood and tissue.
It's totally absurd, but like when that happened, I found myself making jokes about the moment for the rest of the movie while we watched it, because like, I don't know, it's just like. It was as over the top as any of the violence to me. I guess is that's what it is. The violence is expected in a movie like this.
All over gratuitous.
You can make a decision if you want to make the female character like a total object or not, and they basically make her a total object in this movie.
Yeah, because she doesn't do anything else throughout the whole film, really.
So let me make it very
just get,
clear.
like, taken hostage, and I'll do it for you, so you don't have to defend yourself.
Yeah.
You're not being sexist. You're making a point to the film. Of saying that, like, the moment that the girl opens the door and is like not wearing a bra and like has to cover up, but she's wearing perfect hair and eye makeup, like she literally is just about to go on a runway. It's just a joke. It's not real, and it pulls you out of it, because as an audience member, even as a male, even if you're a guy that's like, oh god, she's fucking hot, you still like, you have that moment where you're like, but why?
So here's the question for you. This is something I asked right after it happened in the movie.
Okay.
Do you think that in the script the direction was very specific for a reason?
I don't think so. You mean like you think like in the script there was like written costume design of like she looks dressed up in this way but is not wearing this?
Maybe or like something like that, or like she's a beautiful like Southern belle, which like would make the rape sort of like the rapey stuff, because it's actually, they don't actually make it clear what actually ever happens.
I could totally see in the script that it would be like a beautiful Southern belle that has just woken up is startled by Swagger's knock at the door.
Right.
Something like that.
I guess I just was sort of trying to figure out, like, it is so obvious,
Swagger.
and we give Fuqua very little credit, but he's obviously much more accomplished and smarter than we make fun of him for. So I think that he's very aware of that.
It's the same thing that Bay did, dude. When he cast Megan Fox, it was like he had 5 girls come and wash his cars and videotape them washing his cars, and that's how he cast her role. You know, like, sex sells. You know, and as much as we don't like to admit it, like, that's something that happens all the time in this industry. And even if it's something that we don't agree with or that we think is used ridiculously, it happens.
All right, let's move on. Even though I'm defending it, I feel uncomfortable.
I understand. Don't feel uncomfortable.
I'm sorry, Marissa. I tried to defend it.
He did okay.
At least try.
She's just gone. You guys haven't been on air for 5 minutes.
All right, guys, let's move on to the next part of the show here, Star Profiles. We're going to talk a little bit about these guys and where they were in their career when this movie was made. We usually like to focus on the top 2. So in this case, you could have made an argument for Kate Mara. You could have made an argument for Danny Glover, but I think it's pretty clearly Michael Pena is the second lead in this.
Yeah.
And then Wahlberg. So this is a funny part of Wahlberg's career. 2006, he's in The Departed. He got an Oscar nod for that, I believe.
Which is ridiculous.
He's great in it.
He's great in it.
Yeah.
Oscar nod? Could you imagine if he actually won Best Supporting Actor for that?
No, that wouldn't.
Yeah. I love that movie, and I think he's great in it.
Yeah. He gets the Oscar nod for Departed in 06. Also, one of my favorite guilty pleasure movies of all time, Invincible, 2006.
I love that he's wearing an Eagles jacket in the movie.
Yeah, Vince Papale, he plays the local bartender who goes. He's like a walk-on. He's like a walk-on
They do
tryout.
like open tryouts in Philly.
It's a true story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's based on a true story. And he like gets on the team, and he's like a special teamer, and he has like a block or something in a game once. But it's awesome. Invincible's great. If you guys are
it's so fun.
Yeah, if you like sappy sports movies, that's a fantastic one. And then Four Brothers, which is John. That's not John McTiernan. It's John Singleton. It's the guy who directed.
Ledger's in that as well.
No. It's Garrett Hedlund.
Yeah.
Boys in the Hood director, Baby Boy director, John Singleton. And
Baby boy.
yeah, Andre 3000, and the last guy is Tyrese, right?
That sounds good.
Have you never seen Four Brothers?
No.
You've never seen Four Brothers?
No.
Oh,
Have you?
yes.
You enjoy it?
No.
Exactly.
It's not a good movie.
I've heard that from everyone that has talked to me about Four Brothers.
But like 05, 06, this is like a big transition period in Wahlberg's career.
Yeah, it's like people have gotten over the fact that it used to be Marky Mark.
Yep.
And now you're working your way towards leading man. That's what you're doing.
Because a few years before this, the credits that you're looking at from like 01 to 04 is like Perfect Storm, The Italian Job, Planet of the Apes.
Right, which was one of those things where when he was doing those, I mean, Italian Job's pretty good, but Planet of the Apes, it was almost like this is too much too soon.
Yeah.
I think so. I think he kind of took like a seat. I think that's why Departed might be the most important movie in his career.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other big thing was that Entourage launched to somewhere around here. I think Entourage launched maybe in like 04.
That's
that sounds
the
about
most
right.
important thing that's happened in his career for sure.
And this, because everybody knew that it was kind of like loosely based on his story, he was the producer, it kind of had that whole vibe. He got a lot of press for Entourage. That was a big thing for him.
It's still so crazy when you go to Wahlberg's IMDb page, the first thing that pops up are his producer credits.
Yeah, of course. He's produced tons of stuff. I mean, it's also really cool to see that Wahlberg has made such an incredible impact in the last decade, since 06 really. His career has been wildly successful.
I think he won us all over.
I'm totally won over.
I totally got won over because I didn't like Wahlberg originally, other than like I thought he was fantastic as Dirk Diggler because he just played himself.
Right.
Like that was what I thought.
Great, Dirk Diggler.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Now you look at Michael Pena, World Trade Center, the tragic World Trade Center, both the event and the film.
Yes. Yes, very well said.
The film 06. This was one of those too much too soon examples.
It was just like, really?
Yeah, it was one of those things. United 93 came out, I think, like probably the same year or something like that. United 93 came out around the same time, and I think there was a sense from people, they watched United 93 and they liked United 93, and people were willing to enjoy it. And I guess this movie came out and it was like
that thing they do with disaster flicks or earthquake, volcano films, superhero films. It's like, no.
Well, it's like United 93 was like Paul Greengrass wasn't starring a big star.
It wasn't about
the
trade centers.
It was like this great story, really well done, great movie. World Trade Center, then you switch over, you're like, so Nick Cage, he's doing Ghost Rider this year also, and he's going to star as a fireman in this World Trade Center movie.
You know, about that thing that happened a few years ago.
Yeah, that big deal thing. And it was like, I've never seen it. I've never had any interest in seeing it.
And I don't think I ever, I don't like to talk about things that I haven't seen.
Yeah.
But I don't think I need to in this sense.
And it was directed by Oliver Stone, I'm fairly certain.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. Then Babel in 06, which I've seen. I don't remember him in Babel, to be honest.
I don't really either. Babel's just like one of those classic Oscar dramas.
Yeah, Gonzalez, NR2. It's like one of those really, really dark, super
slow,
intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Kate Blanchett and Brad Pitt, I believe. It's a good movie. And then 50 Pills I've never heard of.
I haven't heard of it either. He's like not even in the top billing, but that's why I put it in, is like this dude in his career, I mean, he still kind of is fighting to be relevant. And like I know he was just an Ant-Man and he's in great movies all the time, but he's a guy that if he didn't show up in a movie for 5 years, everyone would forget about him.
Right, definitely. You know? He also in he's in Crash.
Yeah.
In 06.
Yeah, he's the dad of the daughter.
That's the other movie that would have come out in 06.
Yeah.
Which is a huge one, obviously.
Yeah, it was right afterwards.
Yeah. All right, moving down. Let's get into the next bit here. We're gonna play a little game, something inspired by Andrew, one of Andrew's thesis statements about his boy Elias Koteas and what was his name?
And Christopher Maloney.
And this is gonna be just a little quick top three actor lookalikes.
Why not?
Yeah, it just seems like a fun thing to do. So we showed a Christopher Maloney picture. Are you using that as one of yours?
I am going to use that as one of mine.
Okay, so we've seen that one already. I'm gonna throw mine out here. Marissa is gonna help us out with this. Thank you so much, Marissa. If the folks want to find you, you do 2 episodes of Anatomy of a Movie every week on the Popcorn Talk Network, as well as numerous after shows. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, hi, Steven.
Hey, Steven.
Marissa does that.
Hey, Steven. We were going to throw up her cred so people could find her, but we chased her off with the extremely sexist thesis statement, apparently.
Exactly.
So I hope you're kidding.
So basically what we're doing right now, Steven, is a lookalike game, and we just need you to Google, name versus name lookalike, essentially.
So this number one I'm going to go with is Anna Gasteyer and Catherine Hahn.
Oh, that's a good one.
I've actually mistaken Catherine Hahn on a red carpet for Anna Gasteyer twice.
Not to her.
Not on camera, but I did give the wrong direction to a co-host about who she was after she had done the interview. Like, she didn't say it, like, you're this person. She did the interview.
That's the chick from SNL.
She asked random questions, like, you know, like, just, like, and then afterwards, she was like, who was that? And I was like, that was Anna Gasteyer. And she, like, wrote it down, and then she, like, texted me the next day. She was like, that was Catherine Hahn, not Anna Gasteyer.
I'm never working with you again.
I mean, can you blame me? Can you blame me?
I can't. That's a very good one.
Steven, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, pretty uncanny.
Pretty
darn similar.
uncanny.
They're both very funny.
They're both very funny and very talented.
Here's the question.
Very lovely. What?
Which one is in Step Brothers?
The one on the right. No, excuse me, the one on the left. Sorry.
I think it is. I think Catherine Hahn is.
Yeah, she's on the left.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's uncanny.
It is uncanny. All right.
Okay, so my next one that I'm going to go with, my first one was Coaxed and Maloney, which you guys got to look that up. My next one is going to go, it's a throwback.
All right.
Because this, I don't feel holds as true anymore, but in the beginning of their careers, Natalie Portman and Keira Knightley, I thought always looked the same. I would always get them mixed up. And I think, like I said, this is a throwback because this is something that I did more as a child. But if you pull up pictures, if you type it in, the lookalikes, it's pretty uncanny as well, especially when they were younger.
Well, you know the piece of trivia. The piece of trivia, obviously, is that in episode one of them is Queen Amidala and one of them is Padme.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they look, because in the makeup, they look so similar, nobody could ever tell.
Yeah, no one cared.
Yeah, it's a real thing. That was a real thing that happened.
A real thing that happened.
It's a
and
real
as you
movie,
can
Jack.
see,
They look pretty similar.
which one's Knightley, Bateman?
Knightley's on the right. Are you kidding? She's been my crush since I was like 12.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to tell them apart.
It's very obvious.
Yeah.
But
Keira
still.
Knightley has literally been my single female movie star crush since I was 12.
I'm a big Rachel McAdams guy. Still am.
Love McAdams.
Yep.
The only person that rivals her for me, Diane
Lane, of course.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to go with my next one, and this is going to be one that's I think a little bit less exact and a little more like, it's just, I always growing up would refer to Dennis Quaid as the poor man's Kevin Costner.
Yes, Dennis Quaid and Kevin Costner.
And I do think that they are similar on that one. Steven, do you think that there's any credence to Dennis Quaid being the poor man's Kevin Costner?
I mean, maybe. I don't know about that, though.
I mean, like, you think about their careers and stuff, and it's like Dennis Quaid has been substantially less successful than Kevin Costner.
Yeah, for sure.
And they do look very similar, and Quaid is kind of off the map now.
I like Dennis Quaid a lot more than I like Kevin Costner, though.
Wow, that's really the two of them, huh?
Yeah.
Insane.
It's
That's
night and day. Costner's clearly on the left.
Well, I mean, here's the thing about Dennis Quaid and Kevin Costner. First question, have we done a single Costner or Quaid movie on the show? I don't think we have.
No. I like Mr. Brooks.
Yeah, I don't think we could do it on this show.
I just am saying.
I think we could. There's a couple movies. There's Costner. We could do No Way Out, or we could do The Untouchables if we want to do either one.
We could do
both directed by Brian De Palma.
Yep.
We could we could do Dennis Quaid, Dragonheart, right?
No.
Isn't that him?
I don't care.
The Alamo, Inner Space. I love me some Dennis Quaid.
I do too. He's excellent, but he's just, you know.
They turned out to be different, like very different actors in terms of like where they were sort of shoehorned in.
Oh, absolutely.
And they ended up both having super sweet careers. It was just in the early going, Costner would get like the premium role, and Quaid would get like the slight
second
knockoff.
billing or third billing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, exactly.
One of Quaid's all timers is definitely Any Given Sunday. That's like one of the great ones.
I love that one.
Yeah,
it's a good one. All right, so my last one, and this is what I was just thinking of on the way here was Bob Saget and Stephen Colbert.
Oh, that's good.
Are identical.
Yeah.
It trips me out. And then I was like, I know I shouldn't be on my phone when I was driving, but I was like, I thought of it. And I was like, oh, let me Google that real quick. And it blew my mind. Like,
Yeah.
some of the pictures they have of the two of them together are hilarious.
Are they friends, I wonder?
Oh, it gotta be.
Yeah. Wow. Holy moly, that is similar.
It's the same guy.
That's unbelievable. That's really impressive.
So those are my top three pairs of lookalikes. Who's your
That's what I went with. Is maybe a stretch, but I just remember like the way they were sold to us. It's as much how they look as like when they came out and like what Hollywood tried to do as far as convincing us that they were stars.
Okay.
And that's Sam Worthington and Jai Courtney.
Yes, I completely get it. And the only reason that I think it falls apart a little bit is because Jai Courtney's career continued.
Yeah.
Whereas Sam Worthington stopped.
Well,
but
I think, unless I'm totally mistaken, Worthington's in Hacksaw Ridge. I think he's in it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really that far.
No, it's not, and I totally get the reason that you would put them together.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like the same. They play the same role, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just like the leading man in any throwaway action film.
Yeah, but not a lot
was
of
a lot of
personality to either one of them. Both
depth.
Both like good actors enough to pull off what they're given, but like neither one of them would you walk away. Like we talk about with Risky Business so much of the time. The most amazing thing about Risky Business is even though he's like 20, you see Cruise and you're just like, oh, that guy's an absolute star.
That's a star.
You're like,
yeah.
there's no question that guy's a star.
You see this and you see those guys. You're like, those guys should be secondary characters.
Yeah, you're like, these guys could be in movies. Maybe they'll surprise me next time. But it's not like magnetism.
No, not at all. Okay, guys. So
I'm gonna give you guys one.
Oh, great! Excellent.
I'm gonna give you Matthew McConaughey and Josh Lucas.
Oh, this is a good one. This is a
because
very good
literally, anytime I think of Sweet Home Alabama, that movie, I think Matthew McConaughey was in it until I have to be
Oh yeah, look at that.
reminded that he wasn't.
All right.
That's
not bad.
a good one. That's a good one as well.
McConaughey, since doing his whole turn for like a few years where he got like 90 pounds, I feel like would look a little more distinctly different now.
Yeah, definitely now, for
Back
sure.
in the day.
Yeah, definitely.
This is classic Fool's Gold.
Fool's Gold McConaughey. Why is it that whenever we talk about old school McConaughey, that's always the movie for
the
both
one
of
we
us that comes up? Why is that? That's such a bizarre movie.
I know. I think I've only seen it once, maybe
I've never
on cable.
even seen it. That's
yeah.
not like we don't talk about like Ghost of Girlfriend's Past. We
No.
don't talk about
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Sahara. We don't talk about like
Yeah.
A Time to Kill, which is like actually good.
I actually like that movie.
Dazed and Confused. Like it's always Fool's Gold. For some reason.
That doesn't tell you about you and I, then I don't know what will. Okay, so if you guys have other great ones, let us know at AMA Podcast, or even throw them in the live chat, and we'll be able to shout them out. But those are our 6 pairs, plus the honorable mention to McConaughey and Lucas.
Let's talk a little bit about how this movie got made, who the players were. Fun fact, Keanu Reeves was the original choice to play Bob Lee Swagger.
I'm so glad that it didn't happen, because then John Wick wouldn't have happened.
Wouldn't have happened, exactly. Yeah, Wick is 2012, I think. Is that right? Or is it 2014, maybe? It's like later.
Might be 14.
Yeah, in 2007, unless I'm mistaken, Keanu Reeves' most relevant thing he had done around there was a role in Something's Gotta Give. I think that's right. I think it was like 2004 maybe.
Yeah.
He did Something's Gotta Give. And I remember him showing up and being like, oh, he's pretty good in this. And he's like kind of a hunk still.
Yeah, well, that was because people needed a break after the Matrix trilogy, right?
Yeah, and then Lake House, if I'm not mistaken, is right around 2006.
Brilliant piece of cinema.
Yeah. He just didn't have he didn't really have great luck with his roles around then. And I think before John Wick, he had definitely hit that point where
he didn't know where to. Yeah, he didn't know what to do.
Yeah, and it's cool that he sort of has managed to reinvent himself a little bit. I think it was too early. I don't think he would have worked in Shooter. You know?
Yeah.
Wahlberg is kind of the perfect shooter, and Reeves had to be put in. Like Reeves for John Wick is the perfect John Wick. So you couldn't swap it. Wahlberg could not have played John Wick convincingly.
No, not even close.
That wouldn't have worked.
And he's a good actor.
Yeah,
you know,
it's just different. It's something about like the way Reeves talks, like his
like empty soullessness.
Yeah, it's perfect for John Wick. That movie's so good. I can't wait for John Wick 2.
Real quick though, someone said Prince of Thieves for Costner. Classic for a laugh too, because it's one of the worst British accents ever.
Somebody just suggested Prince of Thieves last week. It's probably the same person.
And then Rangers fans said that Sahara is his favorite film.
Is it? He's no way. Rangers fan? Come on.
No way.
You've been with us a long time. That's a real thing. Are you trolling us? Admit it if you're trolling us.
You literally just blew Ben's mind by saying
Sahara? Wow. That's like Steve Zahn and Penelope Cruz, right?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. Wow.
It's about a desert.
Unbelievable. Rangers fan, I invite you to write us a reason we should do Sahara, because if somebody loves that movie that watches this show, maybe we're wrong about it.
If you make a great thesis statement, it follows the rules, and you prove a good point, you might damn well see it.
We fucking love McConaughey, and I don't think there's going to be an opportunity to do a McConaughey movie on this show.
Not really?
I don't think he's been that guy in a movie for us. I would kill to do Lincoln Lawyer, but I just don't think it works.
God, I love Lincoln Lawyer.
It's just not a movie for the show.
Not an action movie.
Swagger's name, this is another funny fact that I wrote down, may be a play on the term swag. In sniping terms, it stands for scientific wild-ass guest.
Yep.
Yeah, a quick calculation made on the fly.
Something like that changes, I don't know, it becomes a trig problem. He has to do it on the fly.
Trig problem, he has to do it on the fly. God damn, he's so good.
So smart.
He's so smart. He's the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys, let's talk about the writers here who wrote this. So there's 2 guys involved. You have Stephen Hunter and you have Jonathan Lemkin. So Stephen Hunter is the novelist that the book Point of Impact that this is based on actually is written by.
Great title.
Yeah, Stephen Hunter. This is really funny. He just like the guy, Lee Childs. Lee Childs, is that right? The guy that wrote the Jack Reacher books. Just like him, has written an entire series of Swagger books. So he's written 7 or 8, 3 of which are about Bob Lee Swagger, 3 of which are a prequel trilogy about Swagger's dad, and 1 of which is a book about Swagger's son. It's his wheelhouse that he likes. He was like in the military for a couple years, I think in the late 60s, worked at the Baltimore Sun. He's been a journalist for a long time. He's like reviewed films. He's a firearm enthusiast.
Clearly.
He's noted as like knowing a whole lot about guns. And yeah, I mean, he won a Pulitzer as a film critic for the Washington Post.
That's
which
like
is
a big thing.
Yeah, and it's just funny that like that. It's funny to me when you think about the script in this film, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because please finish your thought before I jump in.
Before we break the script down, because I think we will in just a second here. There's a second writer involved. So there's Stephen Hunter, who I think it's like 10 or 12 books, some compilations, won a Pulitzer. This is his only feature film credit. It's the only shooter novel or Swagger novel that's been adapted. On the other side, you have Jonathan Lemkin. Lemkin's a guy that came up in the late 80s and the 90s writing on like TV police procedurals, 21 Jump Street, Hill Street Blues. Like between 97 and 07, he worked on 4 films. 97, he wrote The Devil's Advocate with Tony Gilroy.
That movie's sweet.
They were nominated for a Saturn Award for that. He wrote one of the unused scripts, the very first unused script for Superman Lives. That whole entire saga.
Nick Cage thing?
Yeah. That whole saga, there's tons of scripts people wrote drafts for. He wrote the very first draft of it. He ended up writing Red Planet, Lethal Weapon 4.
I think he's a brilliant writer.
And then Shooter. Hasn't had a piece of active work since 07, but he's been rumored.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
This guy wrote Lethal Weapon 4, okay?
It's Lethal Weapon 4.
It's Lethal Weapon 4, guys.
He ripped the door off a tank. He's rumored to be working on G.I. Joe 3. That was one project.
Okay, yeah.
And then his name has come up in talks for several other projects as well. One that would be directed by Frank Marshall. These are like, I read some clippings from the last couple of years, but nothing credited on IMDb right now. So he's one of these guys who is still working, but hasn't had anything actually in theaters or on television since 2007.
That's kind of surprising because I feel like he's the type of writer that would just be writing random throwaway like fun action movies or just TV episodes.
He might be, and he just might. It's the Bonaventura, who is the production company behind Magnificent Seven, also is producing G.I. Joe 3, which is the reason that we think Lemkin maybe was attached to it, got that assignment. So,
gotcha. Before we get to Bonaventura, let's talk a little bit more about the script, like you were saying. What was the point you were going to make about the writing in the film?
So the point I was going to make was a couple things. We talk about this a lot with action movies, but it's very clear when you have a piece of a script that was really strong, like you read the 200 pages or the 90 pages or whatever. It's very clear when there's like, this is essentially 3 or 4 pages of dialogue that matters a lot to this film because there's a lot of exposition. There's some great lines back and forth. The entire exchange when Danny Glover shows up and is talking to Wahlberg, and that whole entire exchange, which is like kind of inaudible because the editing's so bad. But when he says stuff like, "You're a hard man to find," it's like not hard enough, and he's like, all those lines about you enjoy working for the presidency and living in a free country.
Right. Yeah.
You don't elect thugs. You go, some years we do.
You took an oath.
All that stuff. It's all very quick, and it's like, I can see looking at the script and thinking, oh, there's some really good writing in here.
Okay.
But it's a 2-hour movie that has like barely any of that. Most of it just gets thrown away, and it doesn't really. It almost feels out of place.
Yeah, and so my point behind it was like, this guy is an award-winning film critic, a Pulitzer Prize-winning award-winning film critic. That's not like an award they just give out lightly.
No.
And it's kind of like you and I. We always talk about writing an action movie, and you wonder if thinking and watching these films and dissecting them for so long and becoming such an expert in the field, maybe you're just not cut out to do that. And I feel like that's kind of the case with this guy because I don't know. I mean, this script kind of fell flat for me.
Oh, yeah.
Completely.
It's all over the place. It's like trying
the theory is ridiculous. Like the whole conspiracy theory and there's so many plot holes in it.
It's also like trying clearly to take a very large novel that has a huge amount of story and condense it into a 2-hour movie, and being unwilling to just chop out a whole bunch of the story.
Yeah.
Like a whole bunch of the story could have been chopped off and made this movie better, but I think that's the ambition of Fuqua, to take it and say, we want to adapt this and we want to make this a full story.
He always gets caught between making a sweet epic and a throwaway action movie, and that's his biggest fault.
Where, like, the Russian character, the sniper in the wheelchair,
Yeah.
he's pretty much irrelevant. Like, I
He
don't
could be
think-
completely cut out of the film, and his lines could be distributed throughout the other 3 guys.
Yeah, you don't need them at all.
No.
Like, even the gunfight that's, like, out by his house.
It should have just been the senator the whole time,
Yeah, absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, so I thought that was pretty interesting. Lemkin is much more clearly a guy who's, like, either a script doctor or is, like, a, pen for hire type of guy. Because you look at the movies that he got made, it's like Shooter, Lethal Weapon 4, Red Planet, which was, like, kind of a throwaway movie. I think he's got a co-writer on every one of these.
Yeah.
Including Tony Gilroy, who's, like, a fantastic writer.
That's a good person to get thrown in with.
Yeah, but so I think that's pretty interesting. Moving on to Antoine Fuqua. We have talked about Fuqua many times.
Especially lately.
Yeah, he's come up a lot. For those that don't know, he was made famous as a music video director, working with Tony Braxton, Coolio, Stevie Wonder. His third film, Training Day, obviously is the thing that he is known for, broke him onto the scene, and he has now, over the last decade, some of the movies we haven't mentioned, King Arthur, Tears of the Sun, the ones we've covered on here, Magnificent Seven, Olympus Has Fallen.
We've done all of his good movies, right?
Except for The Equalizer.
Except for The Equalizer, which
we're,
is sweet.
We're going to do The Equalizer.
Which we will do, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he's just done a lot of movies. Southpaw, like, he continues to make movies, and he will continue to direct movies.
And he'll keep getting chances to win Oscars.
Yeah, he's put in a position to succeed. The hilarious thing is going to be in 5 years when his film wins Best Picture and is like legitimately good.
Right.
And our whole entire theory and all these discussions,
It's just completely falls apart.
washed away.
Yeah.
And it's just and we're just going to shake our head and just be like,
We're so stupid.
we were
We're
so wrong.
Dumb.
And
So
just,
wrong.
And now the theory just doesn't hold any water anymore. But yeah, that's pretty much what there is to say about Fuqua. I mean, there's
Yeah.
not much else that we haven't said on this show. What I can say is I've learned to love the guy.
I've learned to really appreciate what he does. Absolutely. So moving on to Lorenzo de Bonaventura, he spent most of the 90s as an exec at Warner Bros. And became the president of worldwide production. And while he was there, he he started his own production company called De Bonaventura Pictures, which is based at Paramount. But what I was saying is, while he was at Warner Bros., that was when Warner Bros. Signed on the Matrix trilogy and the Harry Potter series. So it was like, basically after he did those things, being in charge of that hot, like, worldwide production, and he does the Matrix and Harry Potter, he could basically do anything he wanted. And he went on to the most recent thing that he's like working on is he purchased the film rights to a 6-part series of fantasy novels written by Michael Scott. And he says this is basically this is what should be the natural evolution of what Harry Potter was back then.
Got it.
So that's like the next big step in his career. But it's interesting because his career, he's mainly famous for his love of like popcorn action movies. He did the entire Transformers franchise. He's in the G.I. Joe franchise. He did Red and Red 2. He's working on Die Hard Year 1 now.
Okay, sweet. Yeah. So he's a big time action movie producer.
Yeah, that apparently knows and loves the money behind like children's fantasy novels.
Yeah, sweet. I mean, he's definitely pretty darn successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on to critical and box office here. This was produced by Paramount. The budget was $61 million, which, yeah, that makes sense. It was released March 23rd in 2000. It grossed $47 million domestically and an additional $48 million worldwide for a total of $95 million. So it didn't quite double its budget, but you know what? Maybe that's why there's no sequels. Do you think this movie should have a sequel? Because I sure as hell don't.
I would have expected them to make one.
What about like a reboot in a couple of years? Like a new Bobley Swagger, or like, I guess, I don't know.
It's got a show.
I know.
I mean, that's essentially...
I guess that's what it is.
It's almost just as good. You know,
he can use all of his books.
People like the movie. It was fairly successful. It had a brand name. People have regarded it as like a pretty entertaining movie that sticks around, that people enjoy. You know, it didn't make a ton of money. It still made $95 million. Like, it's still... And the thing is, I think at this point with Wahlberg's star, you could definitely make a Shooter 2 and expect it to do at least as well.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like Cruise the Reacher. It's like, do you really want to spend one of your movies in your sort of prime doing that?
No, you don't.
Seems like with Cruise, he does that stuff. Like, he made Jack Reacher because he's the producer. Like he does what he wants to do. He liked the first Reacher, it made money, so he's gonna do a second Reacher. With Wahlberg, he doesn't seem as much just like, I'll just do it to do it because I like the first one.
Yeah, I think he knows that that people don't love him in the same way that they love Tom Cruise again or did before, to where it's like, I think they might hold his faults like with more weight to them. You know what I mean?
I was gonna guess that maybe he feels like he's got more to lose. Like Cruise.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, Cruise at this point is just like,
he doesn't care.
Guys, if you don't see Jack Reacher, I'll just make another movie
because I have $1 billion.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty interesting. Yeah, it opened number 3 its opening weekend.
Yeah.
Behind Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and 300, and only made $14 million. Again, it's 2007, Wahlberg. It's the year after Departed. It's not like now Wahlberg's movies open and make a lot of money.
Yeah, we weren't on board, especially after the flop that was the Planet of the Apes movie. It was kind of like, okay, no, I guess you can't do it. You can't be leading man.
And that was, I think that was all the way back in like 2000 maybe.
And it wasn't even really his fault. It was like really poorly written, and Tim Burton did it, and like the apes in it were ridiculous.
Yeah.
Critically, this movie got a 7.2. That's really high.
That's outrageous.
That's outrageous.
Yeah.
Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 48 by all critics, a 44 by top critics, and an audience score of 80, which I think is much more appropriate. Because as an audience, you know what to expect. As a critic, a 48% is exactly what you should give it.
Yeah, completely.
A 72.
Yeah.
That's in the top 30% of all movies made.
Yeah.
You know?
I rest my case.
Yeah, exactly. Empire magazine praised the movie, saying the sequel ready swagger challenges Bourne supremacies with an impressive shoot 'em up, work it out action drama.
Does not even remotely. That's not true.
No.
It doesn't challenge Bourne at all. It's like, this is a very poor action movie that has some entertaining scenes. The Bourne movies are fucking sweet.
Jason Bourne is an iconic name that will live on in film forever now. Bob Lee Swagger is a sweeter name, and no one knows who he is.
One thing that made me think of, just because I was in my mind comparing it actually to Bourne a little bit beforehand, is that so he gets spotted outside the diner by like whoever, cops or special agent guys, whoever those guys are.
Right.
And also doesn't catch that he's being tracked and pictures are being taken of him from a distance, scouting locations. Both things that Jason Bourne would never, ever have happened to him.
Never happened to him.
He would never be like ID'd outside the location, and he would also never, ever, ever have people like taking pictures of him from a distance that he was unaware of.
Yeah, no one would pull a gun on him from behind either.
No, never. It would never happen.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. Now, Rotten Tomatoes consensus: with an implausible story and numerous plot holes, Shooter fails to distinguish itself from other mindless action thrillers. I think it's pretty appropriate.
I think that's fair, and I think the point you just made about the Bourne series and things like that is exactly why.
One thing I will say though, like looking at old Seagal movies, if that's what they mean by mindless action thrillers, I have no interest in watching like most old Seagal. I have no interest in watching most old Van Damme. I have no interest in watching a lot of crappy Schwarzenegger movies. Like, there's a lot of bad action movies that are with people that I enjoy.
That are fantastic. Yeah, are people we respect and love a lot of their films.
I just wouldn't want to watch them, and I would watch Shooter again. I enjoyed watching it.
Yeah, it's fun. If it's on cable and I have nothing else to do and I'm like working on my laptop, hell yeah, Shooter's coming on.
Yeah, it's got some good stuff going. So let's move on to favorite line. If you guys have a favorite line, please share it with us in the chat or leave it in the comments. Probably the comments or tweeting at us actually better, because it will get lost if it's in the chat.
Yes.
I'm going to jump in with my absolute favorite line of the movie. This was like the no question, you are Bob Lee Swagger
qualifier, and
yeah, it's a long line, and he's talking to Danny Glover, and Danny Glover's like, "Can you make a shot at 1,000 yards?" Something like that.
Yeah, he's like,
and he's like, and Bob Lee Swagger's like, "You know what it takes to make a shot at that range? Everything comes into play that far. Humidity, elevation, temperature, wind, spin drift. There's a 6 to 10 second flight time, so you have to shoot where the target's going to be. Even the Corliss effect, the spin of the earth, comes into play. President's wearing body armor. That means a headshot at over a mile. You believe there's a shooter involved capable of making that shot? Yes. Well, then you got a real problem. You need to find the shooter." Just like the fact that he references the spin of the earth.
Yeah, spin of the earth, Coriolis effect. Yeah, it's just brilliant. That actually, because when that happened, we were watching and we were talking about, like, you know, what would that bullet do to that guy at that range? You know, like, what would it actually do to the president and all that? And so I was reading Patrick Garrity, the sniper expert that was brought on for the film that Fuqua hired. I thought this was super interesting. He wrote, when he was saying when a round is fired, it will fall from 30 to 40 feet depending on the distance of the shot. So a mile, it'll fall probably more than 40 feet. That's a huge drop. So it says, to compensate, the round is fired in an arc calibrated by how far the round is going to fall, the distance of the shot, temperature, humidity, and the wind. And then he goes on and he talks about what that bullet would do to someone. And he says at 1,800 yards, because of the hydrostatic shock that follows a large caliber bullet like that, a high velocity round, the target would literally be peeled apart and limbs would be flying 200 feet away. So the Archbishop would have literally just like exploded if he was shot with that bullet.
Now, if they had done that in this movie, a couple things would have happened. You and I would have like high-fived because it would have been like the most absurd thing ever. He fires a bullet that explodes the Archbishop.
Right. We would have been like, there's no way that's real.
Which is like super funny that like that's actually what would have happened, but they probably knew like we can't go that far.
He's like, we can't show that on film. It's too much.
Yeah.
And people wouldn't believe it.
We'll just put Kate Mara without a bra instead.
Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
I have two favorite lines. My first one is right before Kate Mara does surgery.
Oh, yeah.
He says, I'm going to do all these whippets and pass out.
Yeah.
Good luck, okay?
Yeah, that's great. It's a good
It's
one.
like perfect.
Yeah.
I was wondering why. Because he like told her to buy all that stuff, and it's like whipped cream. I was
Yeah.
like, what the hell? And the other one is, I don't think you understand. These boys killed my dog.
Yeah, it's a really good line.
Anytime you kill someone's dog, John Wick, go watch John Wick if you haven't.
We, as a culture, are very attached to animals.
We are.
If you kill them, we get very angry. So
We kill you.
Yeah, we kill you. Let's move on, guys. We're gonna do one last little bit here. We all loved Danny Glover in this film. It's a departure for Glover because he doesn't usually play a villain.
He usually does.
Yeah, and he's like he's the conniving villain, and so we were starting to think about awesome against type actors who are sort of like leading men and usually good guys that have a turn as a villain that's really memorable.
Yeah.
So we decided we would make sort of a consensus list here of some of the most memorable ones that come to mind. The first one that comes to mind, fittingly, Antoine Fuqua directed Denzel Washington in Training Day.
Absolutely. This was like right after Remember the Titans.
Yeah.
You know?
Oscar-winning role for Denzel. You know, that's like one of the most famous things he ever did, and it's probably because it's against type, and he's great as a villain.
Yeah, and I'm gonna just piggyback on that and go right into the next one. Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs. Now I went and did a little research, and there was other films where I think he was like maybe an antagonist, but as far as to go as like a serial killer, psychopathic, cannibalistic villain,
Yeah.
that no matter what Anthony Hopkins does, what Sir Anthony Hopkins does in his career, he'll never be remembered for anything more
Than Charles Morris in The Edge.
than Charles Morris in The Edge, than Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he was on screen for like 10, 17 minutes, 12
18 minutes or
18,
something. I
yeah,
think
and he won an
something like
Academy Award, so I think that speaks for itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on to other ones that we've done on this show before. We're going to jump in and throw Jeff Daniels from Looper.
Yes.
He's fucking great in Looper.
He's such a good villain because
Yeah.
Willis isn't really a villain.
No.
Like he is and he isn't, but Daniels is like the true bad guy.
Yeah.
And he's great.
He's fantastic. He has the hammer.
He's like kind of intimidating, but kind of not. And yeah,
He's
the
kind
hammer.
of a fuck, but you're like, I could see maybe you were a nice guy at one time.
Yeah, like I'm kind of on board with you, man.
Um,
Speaking of guys like that,
yeah.
Albert Brooks
In Drive.
In Drive.
It's one of my favorites on this list. He's a great villain in Drive.
He's incredible, and he's like such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Normally, you know.
But he's so evil.
He's the dad, and he's Nemo's dad. You
Yeah.
know, like yeah, but he's so evil. That wrist slit I will never forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he goes and puts the razor away.
He's all cleaning it.
Oh, God. Ugh.
Evil.
All right, so we got Glover. We're going to throw in a couple honorable mention options here. We have Philip Seymour Hoffman in Mission Impossible
Yes.
3. Owen Davian.
Oh, and Davian.
A highly underrated villain. Very underrated. I feel like people don't give credit where credit's due to Davian.
I'm gonna kill her in front of you.
Oh, he's great. Just go watch Count to 10. Just go watch Count to 10. It's one of the greatest scenes in Cruise's whole career.
And then go watch our MI3 episode because we lose our shit.
Yeah, we lose our shit. It was a long time ago, that episode.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, we're going to throw in an honorable mention to Liam Neeson.
Yes.
in
As
Batman-
Ra's al Ghul.
In Batman Begins, yeah. I don't think he had played a villain at that point.
Yeah, not really. And even though Ra's al Ghul isn't like an evil villainous guy, he's kind of honorable to his cause. It totally changed Liam Neeson's career, and it started Taken, the whole Taken franchise.
A couple years later was Taken.
And it just made you know that Liam Neeson was a badass. He wasn't
Yeah.
just like this sweet, nice, great actor. He was a badass.
Yeah, completely. It was only a few years before this that I think he lost his wife in the skiing accident. I want to say it was
that
like
was so crazy.
I think that's like 4, maybe.
My
something like
mom is a huge Liam Neeson fan.
Yeah.
And I remember when that happened, she was so sad for him.
Completely, yeah. And I remember that happening, and he had some films come out like shortly thereafter, but it's really been a pretty drastic turn in his career to do things like this. 3 Taken movies.
Love Actually, it's crazy when he gives the speech about his wife dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really sad. All right, guys, moving on. We are going to talk about which category this film fits into. There are 3 action movie categories. Totally ridiculous, totally legitimate, ridiculously legitimate. Movies that are totally legitimate are like The Fugitive and like... what did we just do last week?
I don't know.
Braveheart,
but yeah, Terminator 2, Gladiator, Fugitive, yeah.
Yeah, these are movies that we really consider to be grounded in drama. They don't really fall apart. You don't find yourself laughing unintentionally. They're awesome. Then you have movies that are totally ridiculous. These are movies that fall off a cliff of absurdity. Movies like Con Air, movies like Face Off.
Yeah.
They're just really, really, really silly and hard to take seriously.
Demolition Man's my favorite one to throw on that list.
Yeah, definitely. And then you have movies that are ridiculously legitimate, the kind of middle category, intense, driven by like strong plot, strong acting, maybe a really good villain, but you laugh unintentionally here and there. Movies like The Rock, Predator, Point Break, Speed. For my money, this movie's totally ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think it really wants to be in the middle category, but I just can't take it seriously enough ever to put it there.
There's just too many moments. All the moments we talked about. I've mentioned it 3 times on the show, but the Kate Mara moment when she opens the door is one of those ones where you're like, this movie's absurd.
Yeah.
Like, you just made me not take the only female character in the entire movie other than, like, the super hot chick in the pantsuit who's, like, also, like...
Rona Mitra. Yeah, exactly.
Let's put 2 really, really attractive women in this movie.
She serves no purpose.
Yeah, both of them. It's like, that alone is absurd. And then, like... so much action, so much patriotism, bad acting, bad villains, poor script, poor editing, just so much violence and slow-mo of Mark Wahlberg with a rifle.
This movie should have been made 30 years ago, and it would have been brilliant.
Yeah,
it's still awesome.
Yeah, totally.
But it's not,
totally ridiculous.
Brilliant. Totally ridiculous. I agree. Which leaves us to one other thing, Ben. What is that?
It's called The Pitch. Is it Marissa or Steven up there?
It's Steve. What's up?
Hey, man, what's going on?
Just saying hi. Stephen Lemieux, executive producer of the Popcorn Talk Network, everybody.
Yeah. Wait, Stephen, did you catch earlier in the show when we mentioned that we crossed 8 million views on the show this week?
I was not. That's great.
Yeah, it's pretty wild, right?
Crazy.
Pretty wild.
It's been a long journey.
Yeah, right? So, and then have you seen Shooter?
I have not.
Oh, you should. It's a good one.
You should definitely go watch it.
Watch it on cable someday if you're doing something else and it comes on TV.
Exactly.
So, guys, we are going to be taking next week off as it is Thanksgiving. We're going to be out of town,
holidays.
seeing our families and doing fun things, eating turkey, and we won't be doing a show. So it'll be the first time we've taken a break since Christmas, I think.
Of last year. So this year will be the only that we'll be taking 2 weeks off.
Yeah, we'll take like this, and I think we'll probably in December take a week off, I'm assuming. So next week we're going to be doing a fucking classic, though.
Yes, exactly. The whole point of this is like, this is such a great classic movie. Go watch this with your friends and family on Thanksgiving Day.
We're going to be doing True Lies.
Yes. The greatest. One of the greatest.
Such a good movie.
I think this is the Arnold movie that I'd seen the most in my life up until like age 15.
Yeah. For me, it's Predator and T2, and then I think... True Lies. It's hard. Some of that 90s stuff. Kindergarten Cop, Batman and Robin.
Oh man, I love Kindergarten. Kindergarten Cop's great though.
That's what we're gonna do, guys. True Lies. It's a classic. We've wanted to do it forever.
Yep.
So watch it with your friends. Come up with your AMA question of the week. Tweet us your thoughts. You'll have a down week next week, which never happens. Follow us on Twitter and tweet at us your thoughts about this episode, next episode. If there's a game or something like that you want to see us play next week, please let us know. You can find me at Ben Bateman Media on Twitter and Instagram.
And you guys can find me at Andrew Ghai on Instagram and Twitter.
And you can find the podcast at AMA Podcast on Twitter. Share your thoughts. Thank you to Stephen Lemieux. Thank you to Marissa Serafini, and sorry for offending you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
From producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire Popcorn Talk Network, we would like to thank you for tuning in. For questions or comments, be sure to visit popcorntalk.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of the Popcorn Talk Network.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Popcorn Talk Network or its owners and principals.